I give Nikki an idea of what I'm trying to capture in a sermon series. I'm like, I want it to be like this, and I want fireworks, and I want this and that, and I want this, okay? And I want a graphic and a sermon series title that captures all of that. And then she comes up with something like this. I'm like, extraordinary. Oh, you nailed it. I love it. An extraordinary God using ordinary people. And every time I look at that word, I think of extraordinary. But it's extraordinary. Wow. And that's what we're doing today. We're going to be asking this question. Will an extraordinary God use an ordinary person like me? I mean, does an extraordinary God use ordinary people? And it's a question that I think has plagued Christians for, since the beginning, where we constantly feel like we have to be somebody in order for God to use. We have to be worthy somehow of God to be able to use us. We have to be incredible speakers. We have to have lots of resources. We got to be able to organize really well. We got to be able to eat, slugs and mushed grasshoppers. We've got to do something extraordinary in order to be used by an extraordinary God. And we take this view. And then we hear Bible stories, then we hear Sunday school stories. And we have a hard time. We were like, oh man, see Elijah and Elisha and David and Paul and Peter. These guys were extraordinary men. Yeah, they messed up sometimes. But we sort of brush it off and act like it doesn't happen because we want to talk about the good stuff. David was something when he met, David and Goliath. And we talk about how trained and how David was pretty much a super soldier when he went up and he fought Goliath. We're like, yeah, that's a hero. So I got to start working out now so I can fight Goliaths. And we boost up these guys. And we heroify them. We make them into extraordinary people, and only extraordinary people can serve and only extraordinary people can serve an extraordinary God. What I'm going to tell you today is God uses men and women not because they are extraordinary, but because He is extraordinary. He is not limited by the frailties of people, but oftentimes uses man's and women's frailties to show others how extraordinary God is. And how God is not limited by how ordinary we are. See, 1st and 2nd Kings tells the story of Israel from the time of an old David until the time of its nation's destruction. It begins with the shock and awe of the powerful King Solomon and explains in sad detail of a nation's constant rebellion before God. And how God, after so many times warning the nation, is forced to hand his prized possession to the hands of enemy captors. It is a tale of kings and how they had to choose between right and wrong, between God and idols. It is a tale of prophets seeking to lead and persuade men and women to their causes. And it is a tale of God and his extraordinary power and his quest to be made known in the land. And we will be joining the journey, we'll be experiencing the journey of two prophets during this time, Elijah and Elisha. Two ordinary men that God chooses to be used by him. Now, this tale is not about them. It's about their extraordinary God. So as we study, do not fall into the temptation of focusing and spending all of our time studying how awesome these guys were. But let's spend time focusing on how extraordinary their God is. I read this quote that was sort of describing 1st and 2nd Kings. And he says, 1st and 2nd Kings gives a continuous narrative of the Hebrew monarchy from the time when David handed on a rich and extensive kingdom to the time of its final destruction, 400 years. And little more than 50,000 words means a drastic reduction of detail. I mean, it is like trying to catch and trying to figure out what's going on in a train, one of those bullet trains, that's flying past you at over 100 miles an hour. Like, you got something, and then it's gone. That is a lot of years. Could you imagine explaining United States history in that sort of time? That's only, 250, almost 50 years. Now, what we're going to see in our study is these few things, okay? And I really want to bring these out, is ordinary people have a part in God's extraordinary story. Ordinary people, normal people. A story that centers on ordinary people. It's not just an ordinary story. We actually found it sort of a depressing story. Because mankind is a little depressing. A lot of problems going on. And we see what's happening here then. There were droughts multiple times. You can imagine the damage that those did. It's nothing new to the world. Bad things happen. It is a depressing story. And the last one, I think we'll see, is a story. In order to be extraordinary, must star an extraordinary God. Bible stories that we read, yes, are about the people that are in them, but all of them point to the author behind them, to the main character in them, and that is God. And how he's moving and how he decides to use ordinary people. Now, if you guys will turn to 1 Kings chapter 16. We're going to pick this up here in about 2 weeks because Leslie has a passage he's been working on, but this is a good way to get started here. It's 1 Kings chapter 16. And I'll read verses 19 through 24. Oh, no, I can do 19. I think we got enough time. Yeah, I think we got enough time. No, we're going to start at verse 21. All right, it says, the people of Israel were divided into two parts. Half of the people followed Tibni, the son of Ginath, to make him king, and half followed Omri. But the people who followed Omri overcame the people who followed Tibni, the son of Ginath. So Tibni died, and Omri became king, and we're like, what is going on here? I mean, such and such killed, what? I don't get it. Okay, but all right, we'll follow along. He says, in the 31st year of Asa, king of Judah, Omri began to reign over Israel, and he reigned for 12 years. 6 years he reigned in Tirzah. He bought the hill of Samaria from Shamar and for 2 talents of silver, and he fortified the hill and called the name of the city that he built Samaria after the name of Shamar, the owner of the hill. Okay, you guys tracking so far with what happened? Remember, they're compressing all of history into one thing. We're like, yes, tracked. A bunch of stuff happened. Woo, okay. Verse 25. Omri did what was evil in the sight of the Lord, and did more evil than all who were before him. For he walked in the way of Jeroboam, the son of Nebat, and in the sins that he made Israel to join, provoking the Lord, the God of Israel, to anger by their idols. You guys see the problem now? Yeah, such and such, blah, 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 blah. But one guy was evil. He was evil before everybody else. So it sounds like things have been getting worse. And he walked in the way of this other guy who must have done some bad things too, for us jumping in the middle of the story. And they provoked the Lord, the God of Israel, to anger by their idols. There is this confrontation that we're going to see between idolatry and God. Now, the rest of the acts of Omri that he did and the might that he showed, are they not written in the book of the Chronicles of the kings of Israel? And Omri slept with his father and was buried in Samaria, and Ahab, his son, reigned in his place. In the 38th year of Asa, king of Judah, Ahab, the son of Omri, began to reign over Israel, and Ahab, the son of Omri, reigned over Israel in Samaria 22 years. And Ahab, the son of Omri, did evil in the sight of the Lord. You guys see that next phrase? More than all who were before him. It just keeps getting worse. And as it had been a light thing for him to walk in the sins of Jeroboam, the son of Nebat, he took for his wife Jezebel, the daughter of Ithbal, king of the Sidonians, and went and served Baal and worshiped him. So it's just straight up saying there's this king here, and he's even worse than his dad, who is worse than all the other ones. So this guy's extra worse. And he was so bad, he married Jezebel. Which, as you know, even now, Jezebel just has a weird feeling with people. Especially, you can tell, like, you don't really see Christians naming their kids Jezebel. You just don't see it. Very similar, the name Hitler is not a common name anymore. I mean, you just don't hear it. And so this is why, okay? So married Jezebel, the daughter of Ithbal, the king of the Sidonians, and went and served Baal and worshiped him. And Ahab made an Asherah. Ahab did more to provoke the Lord, the God of anger, or the God of Israel, to anger than all the kings of Israel who were before him. Could you imagine provoking God to anger? Hey, you mad yet? You mad yet? What about now? Hey. God is getting provoked here. And those of you, could you guys feel your kids poking you? 'Cause that's what I feel. Hey. I watched the girls do it to Nikki, and I'm like, how have you not just pulled their ears off? Like, man, ugh. And he provokes the Lord anger than all the kings of Israel who before him. In his days, Hiel of Bethel built Jericho. He laid its foundations at the cost of Abiram, his firstborn, and set up its gates at the cost of his youngest son, Shagub, according to the word of the Lord, which he spoke by Joshua, the son of Nun. And then, boom, chapter 17, verse 1. Now Elijah, the Tishbite of Tishbe in Gilead, said to Ahab, as the Lord, the God of Israel lives, before whom I stand, there shall neither be dew nor rain these years except by my word. Boom! Elijah shows up. That's what we have on him. We don't have some prequel story, like TV shows like to do. Let's talk about the childhood years of Elijah before he became a thorn in the side of Ahab. He just shows up doing his thing. Boom. Elijah's on the scene, and we will find actually Elijah and all the bam and the glam and the fireworks and the fire and everything else. He was just an ordinary guy like us who God was using. See, what is played out here? Let's see. Oh, come on, clicker. I pressed forward twice. Could you go back to the forward, or I don't know. Sorry, I broke it by. Okay, right there. Okay, good. Okay. So, all right. Now, some of you are terrible with maps, and so I can just say Israel, and you're like, is that next to China? No, okay? It happens. It's not that big of a deal, okay? Some people, all right, now, if you guys look, there's Egypt, all right? There's Turkey. There's Afghanistan, Iran. There's Iraq, okay? Because, like, oh, okay, I still don't know where that is. All right, here's Europe. Here's Russia. China, okay? Australia, Africa. Dun, 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 dun. No, that's Great Britain. All right, that's United States of America. Okay? You guys got the map now? Perfect, all right? So here is Israel. Huh? Let's zoom in a little bit. Okay? All right, so here you have Judah, which is the southern kingdoms, because after Solomon, 2 kings went. Long story short, Solomon taxed the people hard. New king comes in, says, I want to keep doing it. Northern nations are like, we're done. And they're gone. And now Israel becomes Israel and Judah. We're spending most of our time dealing with Israel. Okay? With Ahab, who is years and hundreds of years later, after that, reigning here in Israel. And this is where, boom, Elijah shows up. We're going to end, after this, there is a king by the name of Jeroboam, like the second or third, I can't remember what number he is. After that, with the death of Elisha. So we're only catching a little bit in the story. We're really hitting on, we're starting at 1 Kings 17, and we're going to go into 2 Kings a ways, and that's it, because we're just focusing on these two characters here. Both prophets, as we will see, profoundly impact their nations and their kings. Both prophets, from what I've been able to study and count, is they did about 42 miracles. And what's really fun is, we'll find the story, is Elijah did all these miracles, and he started training Elisha, and then Elisha became the prophet, and Elisha said, Lord, I would like a double portion, pretty much, of the power that you gave Elijah. And that was really fun because Elijah did, let me do math, 14. Oh yeah, I can do math, good. Okay, 14 plus 28 is 42, right? Yeah. Elijah did 14 miracles as recorded. Elisha did 28. It's so cool. So, just a little fun thing where I was like, whoa, it's totally double. And so it's really fun. It's really fun to see. But that is a lot of miracles crammed into a short amount of time. That's what it is. Now, what's fun is this: we can get so wrapped up in the miracles and what it did that we forget the only reason these guys could do miracles was because of their extraordinary God. So don't get so blinded by the shock and awe that we forget someone is doing it. You know how like we can watch a fireworks show? Like, ooh, ah, yeah. And we totally forget somebody's on the ground launching these things and had them set up until one of those machines catches on fire. And suddenly we're like, what? Something actually shoots these things out of the, yes. They're making the fireworks show. Just like we can get so distracted in all the cool fire that we're going to see that we forget that God is the one who's actually doing it. So don't forget that. Now, this is it. So we're going to fly through here, the rest, all right? So you can try to flip to all the spots on the Bible. I wouldn't, okay? There's a lot. All right, so some of the things that we're going to see is how ordinary Elijah and Elisha were. I find that I really like seeing how ordinary guys and guys and gals are, because we're like, oh, I've done that before. That happened. All right, and so the first one is Elijah, we know, struggled with loneliness. And he says, I've been very jealous for the Lord, for the people of Israel has forsaken your covenant, et cetera, and killed your prophets with the sword. And even I only am left, and they seek my life to take it away. God, I am all alone. I feel alone. This is lame. You can just feel his heart. That stinks, to feel alone. Elisha had to walk around to places. They didn't have Uber back then. They didn't. He had to walk, and he lived poorly. It says one day Elisha went on to Shunem, where a wealthy woman lived, who urged him to eat some food. Now, if someone is urging you to eat food, he probably wasn't walking around like this. Okay? He probably, since he walked everywhere, he probably lived pretty poorly. Because you notice, what does Elisha do? Every time he walked by that house, he would visit and eat. He's an ordinary guy. Guys, Especially teenagers, if someone offers you free pizza, do you ever turn it down? Ever turn it down? No. Okay? We just eat it. All right? Another one. Elijah had a bit of a snarky side. Go figure. I think he's now my favorite person. People are like, you shouldn't be so snarky. Okay? And at noon, Elijah mocked them, saying, cry aloud, for he is a God. Now, he's making fun of Baal here, okay? Either he is musing or is he relieving himself? Yes, that it means going potty. Okay? You can't get more snarky. Here he is, all alone, and he's literally mocking the other side. So where's your God? Is he going potty? Okay. How many of us have been snarky? Zach, yeah, be honest, okay? Seriously. All right, okay. Elisha struggled with baldness. Yeah, go men, okay? They had baldness back then, so they made fun of him about. Makes me feel okay. Because sometimes you see these like mega church pastors, they have these, like Joel Osteen, his hair is just like, wow. That's incredible. You're like, man, there's no hope for me. It's okay. If Elisha's bald, if you're bald, you can still make it. All right, good. So he's a normal guy. Okay. We'll find also that Elisha was betrayed. And many of us have struggled with someone going behind our back and betraying. And so there's an account here in 2 Kings 5 that he was betrayed. He says in verse 20 of that passage, Gehazi, the servant Elisha, the son of God, said, see, my master has spared this Naaman, the Syrian, and in not accepting from his hand what he brought. As the Lord lives, I will run after him and get something from him. So Naaman, this guy has been healed and cleansed, and Elisha's right-hand man. This would be very similar to Elijah, and his right-hand man was Elisha. This would be very similar to Elisha running and betraying. So it'd also be similar if Leslie ever went and stabbed me in the back. Hint, hint, Leslie, don't ever do it, okay? All right, so I'm just saying, this is it. So his right-hand man goes up and totally wheels and deals this deal behind and betrayed the message of Elisha, and there were consequences for it, but we'll see that. Elisha was mocked for being bald. What's up with that? So all you people who made fun of my bald spot, remember this story, okay? All right, you guys haven't made fun of it, I'm just saying. All right, so he says he went up there to Bethel, and while he was going up on the way, some small boys came. Now these weren't little bitty small boys. Hey, Elisha, you're bald. No, I don't think so. I think this was a group of teenagers about the age of Seth, older. Okay, there's a bunch of them. And what's really fun about this story is Elisha turns and curses them, and then 2 she-bears comes out and rips them all to pieces. Okay, I got this, all right. Okay, so he was made fun of, all right? That's something ordinary people go through, okay? Elijah was blamed for things out of his control. And so he's staying at a house, and here in the account, the lady's son dies, and she turns and blames Elijah. It's your fault. You're punishing me for my sins. Here I am being all nice and stuff, and it's your fault my son's dead. How many of us have been blamed for something that was not our fault? Yeah. Like my brother was always wrong and I was always right, and I should not have gotten blamed for all that. That's totally a lie. Okay, all right. So here's another one that I think will resonate really well with us. Elijah was depressed. Yes, even godly men and women get depressed. They struggle with it. They struggle with being sad. It says he went a day's journey to the wilderness and came back and sat under a broom tree, and he asked that he might die, saying, it is enough now, O Lord, take away my life, for I'm no better than my fathers. And your heart just breaks for him. Both of these men watched their nation and the people of Israel rebel against the God they loved over and over and over and over again. Humanly speaking, I think it'd be a little depressing. He said, what was your ministry? Well, I was trying to convince the king to change his mind and convince the nation to change their mind, and they wouldn't change their mind. But we're going to see something extraordinary as well. And we're going to see what I tried to summarize these three extraordinary truths about God. One is that he commands fire. Elijah is like the fire prophet. I mean, he's just, it is cool. If I had a power, sorry, Elsa, I'm going with the fire, okay? That's sort of like, all right? That's from Frozen, you guys, man. Okay, all right, he commands fire, all right? Fire of God came down from heaven and consumed him and his 50. That happened a few more times in this one. He commands the weather. And Elijah said to Ahab, go up, eat and drink, for there's the sound of the rushing of rain. And in a little while the heavens grew black with clouds and wind, and there was a great rain, and Ahab rode and went to Jezebel. So God's like, the rain's coming. Started with a cloud the size of a fist and grew into a tsunami pretty much. He commands the weather. He also controls life and death. And then he went up and lay on the child, putting his mouth on his mouth, his eyes on his eyes, and his hands on his hands. And as he stretched himself upon him, the flesh of the child became warm. There is no medical research that says if you lay on your child, they will come back. Lay on a child, they will come back to life. None. It probably does the opposite. Okay? Seriously, I do not lay on top of my kids. Why are you laughing, Haley? I'm joking, because it doesn't happen. And here he is. He gets life. It doesn't make sense. This is extraordinary. He hates idolatry and when his people abandon him. And we've already seen examples of this. God hates it. Because the answer to him, I've not so this is Ahab accusing Elijah, and Elijah says, I have not troubled Israel, but you have in your father's house because you've abandoned the commandments of the Lord and followed the Baals. You, Ahab, are the problem here. I'm not. You are the problem. You are the troubler. We're going to see God showing mercy because he loves the poor and the outcast. And this is Elisha wondering how he can bless somebody who has been such a blessing to him. And it says, your servant has nothing in the house except a jar of oil. And she came and told the man of God, and he said, go sell the oil and pay your debts, and you and your sons can live on the rest. And we'll find this account that's just extraordinary, where God is just blessing in a way that doesn't make any sense. We also see that he changes hearts and forgives sins. Like King Ahab, the one that had all the problems, he actually sort of by the end, he started realizing what was going on, and he humbled himself. We'll see that. We serve an extraordinary God. We are just ordinary people. And as you read ahead, and here in a few weeks we'll be in 1 Kings 17, I encourage you to read ahead and get familiar with the story and the account. It won't take you that long. But do not focus on Elijah and Elisha. They have one purpose, and that is to make others see how extraordinary God is and how he's worth serving. After one of Elijah's miracles, the people responded in this way: the Lord, he is God. The Lord, he is God. Their mission, Elijah and Elisha's mission, is just like our mission today. There's a verse in 1 Corinthians chapter 10, verse 31, that says, so whatever you eat or drink or whatever you do, do all to the glory of God. Make sure you are doing everything you can and do in light of how extraordinary your God is. The mission hasn't changed. So as you live ordinary lives, eating and drinking this week, and whatever ordinary stuff you do it all for your extraordinary God, and do your best to live in light of that. And that's what we are going to see here in 1 Kings and 2 Kings as we study in Elijah and Elisha as two ordinary men serving an extraordinary God.